Well, we're just past the middle of September now, and the amount of beans that's on this row is absolutely incredible. Almost everywhere you look, there's beans hanging, and some of them are getting a little bit on the stringy side now, but most of them are good. So I think I've got to have a picking session, because the longer you leave them, the more stringy they're likely to get. And most of these are prime, ready for picking. I reckon there's probably, well, 8 to 10 pound on the side of this. So there's nothing for it. Pick, 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 pick. Well, that's a crazy amount of beans, and you just got to stop looking, because the more you look, the more you find. And I've picked 3 tubs full, and to be honest, that's a good evening's work. So I think I'm going to stop there. I know what I'm doing this evening. Well, I don't know if you can see him, but there's an awesome newt just down here on the rock. He might swim away as we get a bit closer. Just there. Fabulous. It's great to see this pond supporting lots of wildlife. And strangely, we've still got 1 or 2 tadpoles left. I'm not sure with that one, whether in fact it's a young newt. I think it probably is. It's got gills coming out the back of its head. Pretty sure that's a newt. So this pond is proliferating newt life, which is fantastic. Well, I was thinking the other day, I need to do a bit of a review of the vegetables that are my staples. And by that I mean I grow them every year and they don't let me down. And we enjoy eating them, and we always get a good crop. And one of those is this leek, musselburgh. Now, musselburgh is what they call a reliable, hardy and fine flavoured leek, and that's my experience. You get a really good thick stem to it, which gives you plenty to eat. It's a vigorous grower, and it doesn't mind growing close together like this. These are about, I don't know, anything from 6 to 8 inches apart, and these will last right the way through past Christmas, and they only really begin to suffer when the really cold weather hits, probably February. And this row is quite densely sown, as you can see, and will feed us right the way through to that time. And one of the beauties, of course, of leeks is that it stays in the ground, and because it's hardy enough, it doesn't have to be stored, and that's fantastic. So if you're thinking about a leek to grow, then I'd recommend musselburgh. Well, thanks again to everybody who helped me identify my pumpkins and squash, particularly the Musca de Provence. This one's been a lot harder, but I've been rooting through my cupboards and drawers and found some very old seeds that I'd grown in previous years. And this one, Winter Golden Hubbard, is what I actually think I've got here. It looks so much like it. So I've had a few suggestions, but I think I'm going to settle on this being it, and I suppose the proof will be when I cut it open. This says it has excellent fine-grained black golden yellow flesh with a sweet flavour to match. So I guess the proof will be in the tasting, but it's a mighty fine squash. So Winter Golden Hubbard, I think, is where I'm going to land. In the meantime, I want to show you another one of my staples. I'll swing you around. So here it is, and I showed you this in my last video, but in my last video there was only one of these that was turning really orange, and that was this one. And now those two have gone too, and these are starting. And this of course is the small sugar, so pumpkin small sugar. In this case it was a seed packet by Mr. Fothergill's, and these are just the perfect pumpkin. They make the sweetest pumpkin pie, and they're a great size because you don't want anything too massive when you're making pumpkin dishes. And one of these is perfect for a pumpkin pie where you puree the flesh and use it in the pie mix. So they're absolutely brilliant. I've got 6 of them this year, and I definitely wouldn't have a growing season without them. So beetroot is another staple of mine. We make beetroot chutney. This year we've started roasting it, which has been marvellous, and we like to eat it, well, just cooked and peeled on a salad plate, and it's a delicious crop. And this variety, which is one of the Chioggia varieties, grows an absolutely superb sort of golf ball sized beetroot, which is just fantastic for all those uses. And it's not a crop that I would ever go through a season without, and it's very easy to grow. So another real staple of mine, and this is what's left of my beetroot. And I save these Chioggias to last because they tend to just get a little bit bigger as the season goes on, and they do last really well. And this one is a Kitchen Garden magazine packet, but you can buy these from most of the big seed providers. It's worth a go. So where cabbage are concerned, I always grow greyhound, and this is a greyhound, and these have got quite a lot of damage on the leaves, but inside there is an absolutely solid heart, and that's a fantastic cabbage to use over perhaps 2 or 3 meals. And this fella right next to it is the Filderkraut, and you can see how different it is. It turns out I only ever had one of these Filderkraut in this bed of cabbages, but what a cracking cabbage that is. Solid all through the middle and really quite large. In reality you probably could get 8 in this bed, but these are the ones that I will grow every single year, and that is the greyhound. And once I strip back these damaged leaves, I've got a solid white heart that you can use for coleslaw, or you can cook just as cabbage for the plate, and it's a fantastic cabbage. Well, I don't think anybody would be surprised at what tomatoes I'm going to grow next year. And I've just taken this one off of this plant, and this is going to be my main sort of big bush tomato that I'm going to grow, and it's called Roma. And this one came from a seed company that I haven't used before, Seed Sloth, but it was very successful, and the fruit are such a great shape, most of them much bigger than this because it's late on in the season, and absolutely delicious and quite long lasting, which is fabulous when you've picked them and got them in the kitchen. And of course my dwarf cherry tomato that I've waxed lyrical about all the way through the season is House, a dwarf cherry tomato by Real Seeds. And today there's just a few of those tomatoes left on the plant, but it's been fantastic. And of course the one that I can't show you is because I shared a packet of seed with a fellow allotmenteer on these allotments, and that's Lata. And still to this day it's fruiting, and it's been fruiting earlier than any of these plants and provided me with the early tomatoes that we really wanted, which was fantastic. And I'll show you now, it's actually started to reflower and is starting hopefully to produce some more fruit that will become very late. But I'm going to keep this bush going and see how we do. So you can see the plant here. I'm absolutely staggered how it's sort of revitalized and sprung back into growth, and it's got all these trusses on it. Who knows whether they'll come to anything, but this basically finished probably back in May, June time, and still it's giving us tomatoes. It's a low growing, it's a very unusual habit. It's a real low growing bush, and next year I'm going to grow it in here and see if I can have 3 or 4 plants. But it's been a really fabulous tomato. And my carrot of choice is Sweet Candle F1. And this year I bought it from Thompson & Morgan, and you can see how it sort of shows 2 sizes of carrot on the packet, and that's absolutely right, because if you crop it a little bit earlier, you do get those smaller carrots, and if you leave it, you can end up with some real giants. And looking in here, we've certainly got some giants on the way. That's going to be an enormous carrot when eventually I pull it out. And I like to think of these carrots as 1 carrot equals at least 1 meal. So that's a real staple, and I'll continue to grow it year on year. Well, against all the adversity that I've had with white rot, this has been by far and away the best onion. And this is called Globo, again from real seed. And these seem to have withstood an awful lot of the white rot problems where other onions didn't. And that might have just been luck, but there's no doubt in my mind, if I manage to grow any onions next year in some of the beds that as of yet I don't know have got any white rot in them, this is what I'm going to grow, Globo. Where peppers are concerned, I tend to mix it up a bit year on year, but this year I've grown exactly what I grew last year. And King of the North, which is a pepper that matures in the UK without any problems, as long as you get it in reasonably early, is doing me proud. And you can see we've got just a shed load of beautiful red peppers on these plants. And this one, these are all coming to the end of their natural life now, and I'm going to harvest these today. But this is Semero, which is an early sweet pepper, and you can just see how laden it is with yellow, orange, red peppers. Absolutely fantastic. And then this last one, which also I probably will grow again next year, is Dado de Mocha, a sweet argy pepper. And these are the peppers that, well, they're just wonderful, sauteed, cut in half, popped into a frying pan. And again, this is coming to the end of its natural life. They've all turned, pretty much all turned a beautiful red colour. Some of them still got some green on them, and we'll be harvesting those today as well. I've also got a Semero pepper plant that I put into a very large pot, or at least larger than I normally use, just to see if I can get a bigger bush, and I have done. And the other characteristic of this particular arrangement is that it's living a lot longer. It's got just as many peppers on it, and they're a little bit later than the other ones. And apparently you can fairly easily chop a pepper down fairly tight to the ground, and it'll resprout next season. And I might just try that with that one. I don't know whether it'll survive in this polytunnel, but I might give that a go. Nothing to lose. Perhaps just prune it down to pot level and see if it shoots out again next year. I know a lot of people do that with great success. Whether they do it in the conditions that I've got, I don't know, but we'll see. Well, most of you will know my favoured runner bean. I've grown again this year, and it's Czar, and it's been so prolific, probably the most prolific year I've had with runner beans. And the flower is white, and the pods are really very succulent and tasty. And if you save these pods with a relatively large seed in them, you can use that seed as a bean on its own, stored and even rehydrated during the winter months, which is a bit unusual for a runner bean. So it's starting to go over now, but you can see how prolific this has been, and we've had so many beans off of it. In terms of parsnip, I always grow a traditional parsnip called Tender and True, and this year, like every year, it's done well. I have had this yellow spotting on it this year, but I'm convinced that won't have any impact on the root. I'm looking forward to taking some of those out after the first frost, which always gives them a bit of additional flavour. And that brings me on to the kale, which this kale is called Toscana. It's the Cavolo Nero style kale, and as you can see, good hearty plants that will last throughout the winter months and really are very tasty. I hope some of you tried those kale crisps, which are also delicious. Well, I'm a big fan of celeriac, particularly celeriac with mashed potato, and my preferred celeriac is monarch, and you can see there what sort of root size I've got here in the middle of September, and that will just continue to beef up and give us a tasty celeriac mash a little bit later on. Well, I do hope you enjoyed my video today, and if you did, then please like and subscribe, and if you want to see my videos updated every week, then click on the bell and then you'll be notified when they get uploaded, which, by the way, is every Wednesday and every Sunday at 8 p.m. Well, as they say, winter is coming, and it's certainly getting colder on the plot, so make sure you're getting things battened down and thinking about preparing for the winter months. Good times.